To the presentation, but given by the Eric Sweden, who's from the National Association of State CIOs, better known as NASCIO. His title is going to be Digital Transformation in State Government, Perspectives from the U.S. States and Territories. I've had the pleasure of knowing Eric for a long time. He possesses 40 years of experience in senior technical and management positions within IT, the business side, and then public and occupational health. And he's got a lot of experience in business architecture, information architecture, business process enhancement, and strategy development. He's held a variety of technical and managerial roles in chemical manufacturing and telecommunications domains, and he's been serving in state government CIO community since 2003. Okay. He's had a long list of, he publishes a great deal and writes a great deal of guidance documents for industry and state government, and basically addressing enterprise architecture, governance, records management, digital preservation, and so on. He's also addressed more advanced technologies such as blockchain and multi-sourcing, and given guidance to the states for that. He holds an MBA from the Carleton School of Management, University of Minnesota, Masters of Science from the School of Public Health, University of Michigan. And in 2016, Eric completed the Rutgers University Certified Government Chief Information Officer program with honors. So without further ado, over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Bob, my good friend. I'm so glad to be here. And I'll be giving you some perspectives on digital government, from state and territories. So what is our context here? So sort of a background landscape on state and territorial government. Certainly, we have had fiscal impacts from this pandemic, and budgets were looking really, really bad. Now they're looking better, but that is certainly on our agenda. We have been working on a series of publications culminating with a playbook on this concept of CIO as a broker. And it's a new operating model, and you can download any of our publications from our website. They're all free. They're all downloadable from anywhere. We're also looking at elevated cyber threats, particularly during the pandemic. Unemployment insurance fraud has been horrible. And certainly, like everyone else, we're dealing with ransomware, which is a horrific nightmare for everybody. Then we look at digital government services, user-centric design, streamlining experiences, focusing on citizen identity access management. We also have emerging technology adoption over the states and territories. So how are we governing these investment decisions? We have a lot of emphasis on artificial intelligence, particularly when we have very few people in state government. We have to look for ways to be more effective and efficient. And then within our community, our state CIO community, we have a constant turnover of state CIOs. We looked at 18 state CIO transitions in 2020. And in 2021, so far, we've had 10 new CIOs. So this is an ongoing thing for us. Every year, my boss and I, Doug Robinson's the executive director for NASCIO, he and I send out a ballot to our state CIOs to see what their priorities are. And from those priorities, we assemble this annual top 10 list. Here's what it looks like for 2021. And you'll see here that cybersecurity, that has been number one for years and years and years. Digital government has moved up over the last 4 years. Now it's number 2. And I think the issues we've had with COVID have certainly elevated that. But look where some of these other things are that are related. Broadband and wireless. How do citizens connect with government if they don't have access? They've got to have access. We have a variety of circumstances across the states, depending upon the county, the topography, the economic status of a particular community. We have a digital divide. We have people who don't connect. We have people who don't connect very well, and we're dealing with that. So another important aspect of when we talk about digital is data management, analytics. That's becoming even more important as we go forward, and certainly identity and access management. But I was thinking about this when Bob first contacted me. He said, hey, could we have a conversation on digital transformation from the states and territories? And I said, sure. Let's think about this. And what do we mean by this digital transformation? What exactly is that? So I went back to our Enterprise Architecture and Governance Committee, talked to them a bit. What do you think it means? And, think it within yourself as well. What is it? And I brought this list here from a video that brought up this list of scenarios we had. But look at these little stories here. Homeowner going online to communicate disaster relief needs in the wake of a flood damage. A parent using the computer to confirm licensing inspection records for his child's daycare center. A concerned citizen speaks out at an electronic town meeting about a proposed highway project without ever leaving home. These scenarios, interestingly enough, I asked the question of people I've shown this to, when do you think this video was published? I'll give you a minute to think about that. Look at these stories. And there's the link to the video on YouTube. This video was done in 2000. So we talk about digital government with state government. Within state government, we say, well, we've actually been doing this for a while. We're just getting better at it, and new issues are arriving. So here it is, number 2 on our top 10 list. And I think that reflects there's this absolute dependency on digital capabilities, particularly during an event like COVID-19. So what are some characteristics? I just put these clouds around here, this concept of digital transformation. And I ran this by our committee too. I said, how do you react to this? Look at this list. And can you think of anything else that, would help describe what you think of when you think of digital transformation? Well, everybody resonated with this one. Anytime, anywhere, any device. Issues that arrive, privacy, certainly citizen self-service. They don't have to get in line, they're online, and they can do many things for themselves. And it's not printing a form in PDF, filling it out, and then mailing it in. It's actually filling a form out online. And then how do we organize to actually support our citizens? It's through life events. Like, what are they trying to do? A baby was born. They have to get a driver's license. They purchased a home. They're looking for a job. So we have states like the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that has organized their digital platform based on life events. We're looking for a single master identity, a super identity. Some of the states have implemented this idea of a super identity that ties together all the identities they have with all the various agencies that they work with. Payment options. Can I pay my taxes online? And then we're continually working on new things. So there's collaboration, there's innovation. One of the biggest issues we encounter is, are people really accepting? Is the culture ready? Something that came up in our committee, and I added it here, is this idea of a digital ecosystem with new roles and swim lanes. Okay, Bob and I have been at enterprise architecture for decades. And what we start out with is, what is the context that we're dealing with? And what are the things that we're going to try to do? Let's make sure that we have the proper strategic intent established, and then we'll go look for the capabilities to enable that intent. The same thing is happening here with the digital transformation movement that has been in place for some time. What are the capabilities we need now? And then we're seeing an evolution of new capabilities, because as people see what they can do, they say, well, could I do this? So we get into this concept of co-creation and delivering value. Here's some other things that I put out here as more the technology side. And I added a few clouds here because when I ran this by our committee, they came up with some new things. But we keep hearing about things like big data, agile, sensors in everything, Internet of everything, robotic process automation, digital signature, and being able to develop their own applications. Cloud services, years and years ago, when we first heard about cloud services, the issue was, well, are you going to go in the cloud or not? Well, now it's like, which cloud? How many clouds do you have? So now you have a cloud portfolio to manage, and it's quite complex. Digital assistants and chatbots, these were particularly helpful during this pandemic. So some additional things the committee said was, well, replace manual processes with digital processes. Again, that gets into some of this robotic process automation, AI. And then again, this concept of an ecosystem or a platform for digital transformation. And then another idea is more things are digital, autonomous vehicles, electric cars, electric trucks, whatever. Now we're getting into another related issue is power technology. And there will be new disciplines and new technologies to support that. Let's move on. Okay, so here's some definitions I pulled from the web and also from Sam Holzman, the Enterprise Architecture Center of Excellence. Sam has done a really great radio show on digital transformation. I put all the links here, but this definition is looking at a total overall effect. And this word we're seeing it's touching many things like socioeconomic structures, cultural barriers, organizational patterns. You know, COVID opened up the door for many companies and government to see the value of remote work. You know, that was a hard sell if there was no event like COVID-19. People were culturally just not able to manage putting a workforce in a remote situation. They had to see people in chairs, in cubicles, in offices, in buildings, and that's all changed. So what was the impact of the pandemic on digital strategies and tactics? We asked this question in our annual survey of 2020, and here's what we heard back. Okay, is your state government, in your government, what automation solutions, emerging technologies were first introduced in response to COVID-19? Now, the respondents are state and territorial chief information officers for the executive branches of government. Chatbots were by far the biggest impact in terms of available technologies, and some states stood these up very quickly. Some states already had them, but they had to expand the capabilities. Mobile apps for contact tracing, voice bots to support call center interactions. I mean, these were essential to responding. In fact, it was such a big influence on states' response that we did a whole report on this. You know, Mississippi came up with this concept or this digital person that will answer your questions called Missy. And other states came up with their own talking and dealing with citizens. So we've got this report. Chat with us how states are using chatbots to respond to the demands of COVID-19. This is a map of the states that have implemented chatbots, expanded on them, and you can see it's made a huge impact on how we can deal with our citizens responding in a crisis. And it was very effective. That led to doing a second report with IBM. And we're looking at these technologies related to AI, machine learning, and robotic process automation. So what are the near and long-term benefits? So the current use cases across the states are certainly, again, the chatbots for help desks and call centers, resource scheduling and optimization, improving operational efficiency, cybersecurity and threat assessments. We can't hire enough people to put in front of glass to be handling the millions of cyber attacks that we have on a daily basis within state government. So we've had to automate some of this process in order to have our people focus on the more challenging and the more complex cyber attacks. In future, we'll be looking at more applications in matching, when we have someone coming in for some benefit, touching on, well, wait a minute now, you just won the lottery, you won $1 million, but you've got some taxes that are overdue, and you've got some child support payments that haven't been made. So making those connections across state government, multi-agency kind of collaboration are things that we see in the future. Certainly, natural disaster forecast, risk analysis, we could see things coming over the horizon. Enhancing constituent experience. So in other words, these chatbots are learning. What are the questions coming from our citizens? And how can we inform the chatbot to be more capable in answering questions? Streamlining workflows, forms processing, and again, cybersecurity threat assessments. That's always going to be a top priority for us. So as we asked our state CIOs to comment on their digital transformation efforts, these are some quotes from some of our CIOs. So what are we looking for? Getting back to that consistent look and feel for citizens. Research user behavior activities have shown solid measurable improvements in many areas. We're looking at the behavior of our interactions on our websites. And then certainly our governors have been very concerned about how prepared we are to deal with events like this and be able to interact with our citizens in a proactive, productive way so we're meeting their needs. So the biggest driver for establishing digital services beyond a pandemic like we've had, this keeps coming up, is a better online experience for citizens. So we're looking at how are they interacting with state government? How do they feel about that interaction? What would they like? That is number one, certainly. Optimizing operations, lowering costs, that's always going to be an issue for us. And as more and more capabilities come forward over the horizon, there'll be new ways to, in fact, gain these operational gains and lower costs. Increased public participation and engagement. One of the things that states had told us in one of our reports related to innovation is a key ingredient to success is input from our citizens. I mean, they're the ones that we're serving. It's outcomes for our citizens that we're after. So looking at concepts like co-creation, where in fact citizens become a part of the team that are developing solutions, so we know we're getting their input, their perspectives on creating digital solutions. So as you see the quote down there from one of our CIOs, this isn't even a question at this point. Government is now digital. Our world is now going to be all or very largely digital. And I would say, based on that first slide I showed you, we've been at this for over 20 years. We're just getting better at it. And new issues arrive as more digital capabilities come over the horizon. So which digital thinking concepts are most purposeful in your deployment of a digital strategy? Again, from our state CIOs, this is from our 2019 survey. And number one, top of the list is a citizen-centric approach to prioritizing activities and creating value. That little phrase at the end there is very critical, creating value. And it's got to be value as the citizen perceives it, or as the citizen places importance on it. Another area we're investigating this year, we're going to publish very soon on this concept of business relationship management. One of the key ingredients in BRM is value creation. So that's a very important one. Second on that list is transparent and open access to information. Transparent government. We'd said in our series on analytics, do you think or do you know? We brought up this idea that someday citizens will have the capabilities in their hands to see exactly what government is doing. They'll be able to look at the data that fed the analytics, that fed the decision making, that provided the insights to decision making. Citizens will be able to do this as well, and possibly better. And they'll be asking government to justify decisions. They'll be asking government to justify policies. Hopefully, we'll have citizens participating in the development of those policies. Are these the right policies? And that all is done and possible with the advent of transparency and the availability of these digital services, digital portals, dashboards. And then the next step would be teaching our citizens on how to effectively use those dashboards. So which digital technologies provide the best value for enhancing the user experience? This again is from our 2019 survey. Number one, top of list, single door entry point. Citizens should not have to know our organizational model. They shouldn't even have to know agency. Whatever door they come in, we should already be responding and saying, well, given your circumstances, here are additional agencies we need to connect you with. Here are additional services, possibly here are additional obligations you need to know about. So the citizen comes in any door, and then we can help them with all of these other connections. Second on that list, more online citizen services. So certainly citizens are looking for more access, more ease, anytime, anywhere, any device. So now relative to the state CIO organization, what is your role in looking at this whole ecosystem, this platform for digital services? 84% of our states and territories, our state CIO is leading or participating in policy setting. 63% of our states, they're responsible for setting overall direction. So you can see the role of the state CIO has certainly become more and more important across states and territories in the United States. Now, one of the issues that we currently are dealing with, and it's been ongoing, we did a whole series on information sharing at about, I'd say about 2004, 2005. And one of our biggest challenges in information sharing was this same issue, culture. So digital government's biggest challenge is culture. This came out of our 2018 survey. And I think this still remains one of our biggest challenges. Now, as I said, the role of the state CIO is elevating. It's growing in importance. It's growing in scope. And it's not strictly a technology job anymore. In fact, you'll see from this slide, technology is becoming less and less of an emphasis. It's still there. It doesn't go away. But the emphasis for a state CIO are these other capabilities: communicator, managing relationships, strategy, diplomat, change manager, negotiator, facilitator. So this is what's happening here in the States. I believe it's happening as well within industry as I talk to people in some of our corporate partners. So the role's changing even as we move into this more and more into this evolving digital ecosystem. So relative to digital government, from our consensus is as follows: the needs, benefits, solutions of an effective digital transformation strategy are maturing and becoming clearer. So as we think about this, we've seen a maturing of all sorts of technologies, business practices over the years. There's various eras. We're in one now with digital transformation. We were in one with removing variation, and we used capability statistics and Six Sigma. And that was a major emphasis for a while. Cloud computing was just kicking off in about 2004, 2005 in state government. Now it's a given. And now we talk about cloud portfolios. How do we manage those portfolios of cloud services? It's the same thing here with digital government, which is an encompassing ecosystem, platform. It's maturing, and we're asking better questions today, additional questions, and the capabilities are expanding. So it's got a very broad definition. We're looking at a statewide digital strategy rollout in many states that has to be collaborative. It's helping bring the agencies together as a true enterprise. And as Bob and I have worked in enterprise architecture over the years, one of the biggest issues we've had are dealing with silos of excellence. Well, these have to disappear, and they are disappearing. And we're getting more and more into that enterprise view that we've been after for so long. We have to, because in fact, the citizens are demanding it. So here's what we're aspiring to. Seamless citizen transactions, increased engagement, doing business from any device, anywhere, anytime. But we've got to deal with some things like this. Identity management. What agency am I talking to? You know, you might have your name as Eric Sweden in one agency, might be Eric M. Sweden somewhere else in another agency, might be Eric Matthew Sweden in another one. And it's the same person. So that's where we're getting these super identities that say, this is the person. And they are the same as these personas in the various agencies. And that way we can coordinate, orchestrate digital services from across the entire executive branch. We talked to our CISOs, our Chief Information Security Officers, and asked them in a 2020 Deloitte NASCIO survey, what are the important aspects of enabling digital transformation? How important is security? 92% of them put that issue of security as the most important. And certainly modernization, digital transformation is going to be critical. Standardization on identity access management, that's number 3. Now, as I stated, the role of the state CIO is changing. It's changing from merely providing capabilities asked for, demanded for, ordered from agencies to bringing the state CIO in their office into the agency through the role of the business relationship manager as part of the strategy team in the agency. So we're moving into this, we have already moved into this area, this role in many states and territories, this idea of a trusted strategic partner at the table when an agency or a program is developing a strategy or looking into the future and saying, what do we need to be prepared for in future? So this is changing quite a bit. We used to have an adage back in project management days that went like this. Okay, you gave me what I asked for, but it's not what I wanted. And that has led us to some of these incremental delivery mechanisms like Agile to bring the customer into the development team, being part of the team day by day, developing capabilities, and that shorter timelines, delivering a most viable product has helped us allay this risk of delivering the wrong thing at the wrong time. So we see more and more of this going on. We've decided from across our states, we'll be creating our own online community completely focused on business relationship management. And that's managing customers or customer agencies, but it's also managing our trusted corporate partners who are part of the team delivering capabilities. So it's a 360-degree view on all the relationships that are necessary to deliver value to our citizens. And that includes the relationships with our employees. So digital government, in order for it to move forward, something we absolutely depend on is one of the greatest assets we have in state government, and that is making better use of it through analytics, and we say insight-enabling analytics and intelligence. And in order to manage that massive data resource that continues to grow, we have to have in place appropriate and evolving data governance. We certainly have this concept of data discovery. What data do we have? Where is it? How do we get to it? And then the trust and the legal framework. What data can you see and use for how long? We've gotten into data sharing agreements. And then when we're sharing data across borders, state borders, we have to be concerned about how data is defined. So the metadata is incredibly important. And then data talent. How do we bring up our state workforce to be able to deliver the capabilities necessary in this new world, this platform, this ecosystem? So a lot of states are looking at training up their own. It's very difficult to keep data scientists, analysts, GIS people in state government. We don't pay that well, but we have a mission. So we're looking for people who are mission oriented, and then we'll teach them. We have one state in particular that recruits people from community and technical colleges while they're still in their programs, and they give them tremendous flexibility and opportunities to learn and develop their skills and create and participate in developing solutions. And we're finding as they mature in their capabilities, as they move through their academic courses, the state pays for their 4-year degree. And these people are staying and they're developing greater capabilities in these skills that we need. And they know state government because they've been there for a while. So they're becoming extremely informed and capable. And then they're provided the freedom to act. So they've got a lot of control over their destiny and what they do. This is working. So digital government, what does it look like? Data-driven decision-making. We're asking decision makers, prove it. Show me the data. Show me the analysis of the data. And holding policymakers accountable for the decisions that they make. Moving more and more to cloud portfolios. Cloud gives us access to the capabilities of our corporate partners, which are tremendous. Citizen-centric services. Everything's focused on the citizen, the resident, the company doing business in our state. What do they need? How do we provide the necessary access to the services that they need? And then we get into these personas and life events. Employing more with technology like artificial intelligence, robotic process automation. The idea is to move our state employees out of mundane, routine, repeat kind of tasks and let them do higher level kinds of activities. And we delegate to the computer the routine. This includes cybersecurity. Working remote. Our citizens are accessing services anywhere, anytime, any device, and we're creating kind of a similar environment for our employees. And we're finding they don't have to be in buildings, in cubicles. They can do their work from anywhere. But that brings up other issues like network security, virtual desktop, or some of the solutions that we are employing across the states. And then governance. When we're looking at enterprise services for the citizen, again, the citizen should not know or be required to know our organization. That requires us on our side to be sure we have a true enterprise view that involves all agencies. And that's a big culture change. ERP in the cloud. Okay, so, getting back to some of the successes we've had across the states, one of the resources I would direct you to is go to our website. You'll see a button for awards. These go back a lot of years, 20 years. All the states and territories, you could search on topic, by state, by year, all open to anybody. And look at the case studies. I tell anyone across states and territories, when you're thinking about a project concept, Go to the awards library and see if anyone's already done it, and then contact them and find out what worked and what didn't. But here's just a few things that are listed under this search of digital. So digital services, government to citizen, I've got many pages of awards, and you see these go back 20 years. So we've really been at this for some time now, but the kinds of projects are changing. But look at this, Real ID. See, that's an important aspect of any digital platform, digital ecosystem, is identity access management. Virtual hearings, My Colorado, that's getting into identity management and citizen-centric services. We also have government to business. So Maryland One Stop Portal, they'll actually walk you through how to start a business, get you connected with the Small Business Administration, whatever it takes. What do you need to actually start a business? So as we look at these concepts, Bob and I have been at this a while. We've heard this over and over again: people, process, technology. So I put a few ideas down here on the people side. As we move more and more in this evolving ecosystem, we need to be thinking about culture, ideation. How do we generate ideas? How do we involve everybody that has a stake in the game, including our citizens, in the ideation process? Understanding behaviors. And that gets into the digital portal, or the digital presence has got to be able to detect what is it that you really want? What are the things that this citizen is asking for, but what do they really need? So we're looking at behaviors, personas. We're looking at people as individuals. On the workforce side, we're looking at reskilling. There's new skills, new roles, new responsibilities that are arriving, and we want to reskill this workforce so they are capable and they have interesting jobs. Co-creation, everybody's involved in the creation of our solutions. Whose responsibilities are surfacing? Who's accountable? Who's being consulted? Engaging, communication, continual learning, certainly change management, because transformation doesn't happen once, it happens continually. And then this idea of business relationship management, managing relationships for value and meaningfulness for all parties involved. And then on the process side, we're automating processes using AI, robotic process automation, focused again, value creation. And we're writing contracts and subscriptions and job descriptions as well, related to outcomes. We're not interested in how many lines of code you wrote. We're interested in, did you achieve the outcome for the program, the agency, the strategy? Risk management, we certainly have a higher emphasis here, particularly relative to cyber risks. Legal and compliance, this often can be a barrier to progress because it takes so long. So we're trying to streamline that. Our information sharing agreements, we're trying to create enterprise-wide agreements that have a default, hey, share unless data is of these characteristics. Process simulations, that's all about test a process before you actually implement it. Before you invest in the full production of something, test it out to see how it really works. Continual reinvention, identity management we talked about, relevant process metrics, and those metrics will change because they always have to be meaningful. Always interrogate reality relative to your metrics. Are they meaningful? And then a digital taxonomy, which we're going to look at in about a minute here. Technology, I put just an ellipse there because there's so much there. We'd fill multiple slides with what are all the technologies. Here is an example of a taxonomy. Again, it's part of digital government for state territorial government. We have state departments typically following into these kinds of things: agriculture, public health, economic development, the state Secretary of State's office, public safety, Attorney General. Okay, all the states have a fairly common inventory of agencies. Well, some states have pulled back and said, okay, we got all these agencies. What are the types of services? Again, trying to rationalize, optimize, streamline, simplify, look at state government as a single enterprise. All these agencies have common services. Here's some examples. Not every agency has these things, but quite a few share these kinds of ideas. Registering for something, paying, making a payment, licensing or certification, running some report from some data, so being able to access data, running a map, creating a map of something, a layer on top of some type of an issue, the ability to log in, okay? So if we can rationalize the citizen trying to access these various agencies and use the same process for these services, then the citizen doesn't have to learn 12 different ways to log in. They just log in. They don't have to have 12 different ways to make a payment. They make a payment. So commonality across the agencies is certainly a characteristic, but it requires establishing an enterprise taxonomy. So in the process of creating a taxonomy, here's some best practices. Citizen-centric. Citizens shouldn't have to know our organizational chart. The taxonomy should reflect the citizen navigation. There should be a common interface. Every website should have a common look, and then continually adjust based on the intelligence you get from citizen queries. I went back and pulled out some of our state strategic plans just to show you some examples of what states are doing and how important it is relative to digital strategies. So here's the strategic plan for Oklahoma, their IT strat plan for 2017-2021. Look right here. Strategic vision, building a digital Oklahoma. Here's an example from North Carolina. Objective 5.2 in their 2019-2021 strategic plan. Create a digital strategy. And you'll see some of the a little more detail here in this table. Web tools, services. Here's an example from Utah. Here's what they include in their digital transformation strategy. And we're using a lot of graphics. We see more and more infographics, e-government, mobile strategy, accessibility, big data and analytics, digital government technology platform. There again, the concept of an ecosystem or a platform. Artificial intelligence, center of excellence. Not only to deliver services relative to AI, but to learn about what's coming. So it's a kind of a combination, research, consulting, development. Here's a statement out of that strategic plan. See how they're thinking about this digital platform. Provides efficiencies, consistency in the way the state operates. Enables innovation and progress. A mechanism for more effectively integrating new technologies, like that ellipse I put on that chart. The technologies will continue to come over the horizon. There's no end to them. Here's a little detail. This is actually, they pulled this from Gartner, who provided consulting on that platform. And you can see some of the things that they've included here. Social networks, public-facing ID and authentication. Are you who you say you are? Internet of Things gateway. Identity access management down there at the bottom. Registry index. Who are you? And is it the same person across various agencies? So we are coming up to the end here. The last thing I'll say is we've got a lot of reports out here on a lot of things. Here's delivering digital government over on the left. The state CIO operating model, a playbook changed in a sustainable way. Take a look at that. We have a whole series on CIO as broker. But I would direct you to these reports for more detail. And Bob, over to you for any Q&A, please.
We've got quite a few questions. I just want to ask you one based on what you said. How was the relationship? Do all states have chief data officers? And
I'm
how
going to
does
get,
that work?
I don't know that all the states have chief data officers. I'm going to guess probably around half of them, Bob. And then we've got some data architects that are playing the role, but the CDO role, Chief Data Officer, is becoming more important. Over time, there's a state government CDO forum out of Georgetown University, and they are taking the lead on that. We also have probably about 10 states have formalized a business relationship management role. Some of these business relationship managers are members of the Business Relationship Management Institute. Some of them are certified. In fact, we're starting this whole group, as I mentioned earlier. This is becoming more and more important, and it enables this concept here, Bob. The CIO as broker, that playbook I'm showing you on the left there, bringing, and that business relationship manager is a very broad view. It's not just customers, it's our corporate partners. So vendor relationship management, employee relationship management.
Okay, no problem. I was just curious how the two roles are working together, whether NASCIO is working close, whether it is a chief data officer organization that's equivalent to NASCIO, and how
The chief, I would say that's a growing forum.
Okay.
But in the states where there's a chief data officer, the CDO and the CIO are working as a collaborative team. Okay. One of the best examples is Commonwealth of Virginia. They've done a great job of creating that collaborative relationship. So Carlos Rivera is just doing a tremendous job there. He's the CDO, and the Nelson Moe's the CIO, and they both talk about each other and how the help they get in the collaboration. So there's a little bit on that, Bob.
Okay, great, thank you. I have some questions for you. There's questions with master single digital identity. Okay, basically, do you understand it's critical to move from current services to a digital service model? Do you have more details on the roadmap, challenges, and technology?
We're actually working on that. There are states that have created that themselves, and then others have used. There's a nonprofit out there called Sovereign.org that has been given the Hyperledger technology to create such a thing as a digital wallet and a super identity. You and I in data management and data architecture, we use that super entity, entity type hierarchy. The idea is tying them back to a centric, so we know this is the same person. Within the agencies, they're still using that identity they created, but it links to that super ID as part of this concept of an identity wallet.
Is that blockchain?
Well, in the case of Sovereign, it is blockchain.
Okay.
But it's not always blockchain. So I think that is still in the proving ground.
Okay, fair enough. I think that answers your question there, David. To what extent is AI facilitating the transformation effort? Does it vary by state? If so, who are the leaders and why?
Well, yes, it does vary by state. A lot of it has to do with we have to make the case for it, get the funding for it, and some states have been more successful at this. Now, the other part of this is whatever is successful in a state, we highlight it through our awards, through our conferences, our reports, our digital deep dives. We're doing that now with this new virtual world. Certainly, we have innovation forums. So we highlight what states are doing. They're using AI and robotic process automation to streamline processes. And part of that discipline You don't streamline the existing process. You first evaluate the process through lean or some other management discipline to be sure it's the right process. Are there steps that we should be removing? Are there hidden factories that are actually making up for some of the pathologies in a process? Let's make sure we surface that. And that's what we'll automate. And then the other thing we have with a lot of robotic process automation going on is we have many things going on in parallel. We have to orchestrate all of these processes. So we're talking about orchestration of robotic processes. So one state that I think has done a lot in this area is North Dakota. So they have presented here at NASCIO not only on AI and machine learning, robotic process automation, all those things work together, but also orchestration of RPA.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think that addresses, there were a couple of questions on AI that are very similar. There's also another question. In the digital era, how can we build and maintain data trust? And is it possible to have both speed and trust without compromise?
Remains to be seen, Bob. Speed and trust. We did the speed thing with unemployment insurance, okay? So the emphasis there was, and it was all good intentions, get the money in the hands of the people who need it. Well, that was done fast, and it was sort of a pay and then chase, okay? So money was paid out. There are some estimates that as much as 50% of those unemployment payments were paid to fraudsters who are highly organized, and they're global groups. So we got some of that back, but not all of it. So again, we're getting into that cybersecurity, identity management, and the digital ecosystem has to take account of the risk. How high is the risk? And then apply the appropriate controls to manage that risk. But I don't think you can say, we will someday deliver trust fast. That remains to be seen. I'm very cautious about that, particularly based on the experience with UI, unemployment insurance. That was fast, and it was expensive for the U.S. citizen.
Okay, it's a good case study. It puts it in perspective pretty clearly. There was another question. If it's any door for the citizen, will this be a door to all levels of government, municipal, state, federal, and tribal? I know that you have that in the States. Is this sort of multi-jurisdictional?
That's the vision. In fact, we've had some states say, do I have to know what level? I just have a need. There's a childcare need. There is... trying to find a job, trying to start a business. Do I have to know where? So the idea is to have this orchestration of local, state, and federal government. Is that in place now? Not much. There's very little effort on that right now, but it is seen as a need in future. Now, will that need remain there? In other words, will it always be the case where citizens don't know where to go? Keep in mind, citizens are becoming more aware as well. So let's not solve the wrong problem. I think over time, we'll have to watch what happens with this. But the vision is, I'm coming into government. I don't know if it's local, state, or federal, but I'm trying to do this business. Okay. Vision is you shouldn't have to know what level. You shouldn't have to know what department for sure, okay? But what level? Let's see what happens with that one, Bob, because again, the citizens are also becoming more and more aware of their government. So will they need that? I don't know. Will everybody need that?
Well, we got two questions for sort of AI.
Okay.
How dependent are we going to be on AI for AI facilitating transformation efforts?
Well, I think we're going to exploit it. Okay. You and I grew up with James Martin. Okay. And James Martin was quite concerned about the future as more and more is delegated to the computer. He started the 21st century school. Was it Cambridge? I have to check into that. But anyway, the idea was when you delegate so much to the computer through AI, okay, machine learning, how much are you relying on the integrity of that decision making? Are you removing all controls, controls, governance? So we're relying more on it. We're probably going too fast, okay? And I think a lot about automated vehicles. We've had autonomous vehicles hacked, okay? And they've been crashed. So over time, there's this thirst, hunger for more digital, more IoT. Personally, I think it's not justified. I think it's going too fast because we're already seeing things fail. You and I grew up in engineering, second law of thermodynamics, right? There's this concept of entropy and things will fail. So the US Navy has a real discipline that we describe in our transformation paper, plan for failure, so there's a few comments on that.
Okay, and just another AI related to AI is unintended bias built into AI when automating processes.
Yeah, very good question. See, we that's come up in our discussions about AI. The person programming even a chat. I mean, how many times have you dealt with a chat or a voice bot and you're thinking, oh, this thing is absolutely frustrating. You're asking a question, it's not getting it. And it was because the person designing it or designing the process, they didn't think of that scenario or that scenario going in that direction. So yes, bias is there, and it surfaces at the most inappropriate times. We have a disaster and someone assumes people can get out of an area. Well, jump in your car and go, Well, they may not have a car. See, it gets that simple. So bias is very important to consider in developing these decision logics. Okay, and so we're getting more and more into understanding how people feel about services, and how do they feel about how they're being treated. So I think, again, we talk about emerging disciplines, emerging philosophies and concepts. I think that's going to become more and more important in creating identities for people, developing services that are digital, and it's going to be a while. And that's why that co-creation is so important. That will help allay some of that bias, but I think we'll always be dealing with this issue.
Okay, one last question is how advanced is the portfolio management practice across U.S. states rather than project management, the portfolio management process?
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, it's come a long way in the last 10 years. We have got some very capable corporate partners. And again, it gets back to that idea of CIOs broker. We cannot deliver everything our citizens and residents and businesses need strictly internally. So we rely on trusted corporate partners, cross-jurisdictional arrangements, okay, which could be with counties, other states, cities, to deliver capabilities. And as that portfolio of services, it's a virtual portfolio, but as it gets more and more sophisticated, it gets more difficult to manage. The cloud portfolio. But again, we're relying on our corporate partners who have delivered outstanding portfolio management tools. And I won't mention them, but they're corporate partners that have capabilities for doing exactly that. And then bringing up the level of expertise in our state employees, our enterprise portfolio managers, to be able to run those dashboards, those reports, make the proper decisions. But we're also seeing that enterprise portfolio manager is very important in the business relationship. Okay, so the enterprise portfolio manager, the state CIO, business relationship manager, that's all working together to deliver this enterprise platform, this ecosystem. And that's maturing. That's getting better over time.
That's great. Well, I want to, on behalf of all the professional associations and universities, I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation and taking the time to put this in place.
You're welcome.
It was wonderful talking to you again, and you're always a thought. And for listeners, I'd highly recommend that you take a look at NASCIO.org, the website. They've got a mountain of information for you, case studies and the like for government. Let's put aside the, it's not peer reviewed with this sort of, it is, okay, but from practitioners' point of view. I think there's some incredible nuggets that you can mine there with respect to moving forward. Well, anyways, this brings to an end the morning session for the first day of the conference. Thank you very much, Eric, for helping out and presenting. And
thank you for having me, Bob.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And now I will end the session, but I've got to be careful because with this software we have, I have to wait 30 seconds without saying anything. So you chaps can all log out, but I have to stay in before ending the session. Otherwise, it'll cut off the last minute or two.
So long, Bob. Look forward to talking soon. Bye-bye.
You take care, Eric.